Many Magic the Gathering players ask the question, is it worth it to buy a Commander 2017 Preconstructed deck? Commander Precons have long been one of the better products made for Magic the Gathering, allowing an easy and affordable entry point to the format. But with 2017, the established pattern has changed somewhat, offering 4 decks instead of the usual 5, and with a differing number of mana colors between them. So are these decks still excellent for players new and old, or has this break in pattern made it so that one or more of this year's decks are significantly less worth it than the others? Let's take a look. A Commander 2017 Preconstructed deck contains the following. One oversized foil card of that deck's primary commander, three premium foils of each commander option, ten double-faced tokens, and of course a complete 100-card commander deck, of which those 3 premium commanders are a part of. Now, grades this year will be different because one of these 4 decks has some unfortunate issues which I will get into in just a moment. But let's start with what all of these share. Commander Preconstructed decks allow you to play Commander right out of the box. You can purchase any of these, not just from this year, but from 2016, 2015, 2014, any single one of these decks for about $34.99, and without adding a single card to it, sit down and play Commander with a group of friends, regardless of your level or theirs. So if you've got 3 other friends with their own play group, where each has their own built-from-scratch and refined Commander decks, and you want to join them for game night, yeah, you can join them for game night, just picking up any one of these. No promise that you'll be able to win, but you will get to play, and you will be able to put up a good fight. Hey, I'll never forget when I lost against 3 out-of-the-box Precons with my super competitive Tesa combo deck. These are great out of the box. Or if you don't have a Commander play group and you and your friends want to start one, all you need to do is each pick up one of these Commander Precons. Again, sitting down to play with these right out of the box, or beginning to swap out a few cards for fun ones that you already have in your collection, it's all doable here. Buy Vampiric Bloodlust and swap in your precious Drana Liberated or Sorin Markov. Commander is a format defined simply as playing fun cards that you love, after all. And again, right out of the box, $34.99. So that is our starting point, ladies and gentlemen. What I just said is not the final conclusion, but rather where we begin this video. That's the beginning point. There's a lot more that needs to be said about these, a lot more that makes them great, that builds upon that which I've already established, and also there's one that maybe has a few issues. So let's take a look at all of that, starting with financial value. The MSRP on these is $34.99, although they sometimes go for a little less or a little more depending on the time of year. The MSRP on these is $34.99, and that's what I'm going to work with as the base. If you were to buy all the individual cards for each of these decks, how much would it cost to put them together? Depending on cards and condition, Arcane Wizardry would cost approximately $159.57. Feline Ferocity and Vampiric Bloodlust very closely costed at $133.66 and $135.12. Leaving Draconic Domination to round out the bottom at $129.77, meaning that even the least valuable of these contains over 3 times the price of the deck in individual cards. But of course, that is the cost to buy and assemble each of these decks, not what you're going to get assuredly if you sold them off, because a lot of it you can't sell off, because the majority of the cards here are composed of many, many bulk cards worth under $1 each. So what if we cut all the bulk and then look at value? How do things change? Well, let's examine each of these decks looking only at cards worth $2 or more. What's the value then? Looking at the decks in terms of cards above $2 each, Arcane Wizardry contains 25, which equal a total value of, $121.96. Vampiric Bloodlust contains 25 for a total value of $100.94. Feline Ferocity contains 26 for a total of $94.88. And Draconic Domination contains 26 for a total of $92.97. Quite frankly, this is a great value, even if you acknowledge that prices will drop as more and more of these are opened and the individual cards are sold off. Even if you go by the commander deck of the lowest value, both overall and in terms of non-bulk, you're still getting incredible bang for your buck at nearly 3 times MSRP. And that's for the lowest one. But there's more to it than just finance. Each of these commander decks contains a host of format staples and other cards of interest. In addition to the 3 premium commanders, each set contains numerous other legendaries that can serve as commanders in their own deck, which means it encourages players to consider building new commander decks featuring these cards or utilizing these cards. I love that the Arcane Wizardry deck might give me the idea to build a Nim the Pain Artist deck or a Niv Mizzet deck, and that it contains many cards already in those colors to help me begin that great process of building my own commander deck. And this is also where established commander players can still find value in these products, buying them to deconstruct for a veritable toolkit of cool and useful cards, many of which are available only here. Buy Vampiric Bloodlust for Teferi's protection, but enjoy Edgar Markov as a new commander to build around, and add cards such as Captivating Vampire and Black Market to your existing decks. There's something here for everyone. But there is an issue worth discussing here with one of these decks, and I feel it is an unfortunate effect of having 2 2-color decks, 1 3-color deck, and 1 5-color deck, instead of the typical pattern of 5 variations on the same number of colors. And that is the issue that has arisen in the mana base of Draconic Domination. Draconic Domination is a 5-color commander deck, which by itself is a difficult mana base to pull off, even when you have a large budget and/or collection. That's because you need to ensure access to all 5 colors, preferably as soon as possible, preferably still having some form of acceleration, and unfortunately this is going to require a mana base that is far more complex and defined than the one included in the Precon deck. Now last year we had 5 4-color commanders, and the mana bases were pretty good budget starting points. But for Draconic Domination, we've deviated dramatically and gone instead with 18 basic lands, all 10 tri-lands, which is good, but no fetch or filter or dual lands at all. Now keep in mind that when I say no fetch lands, I do not mean the Zendikar Onslaught fetches, which of course are not a reasonable inclusion for one of the Commander Precons. But given the 18 basic lands in this deck's mana base, fetch lands such as Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Krosan Verge, Myriad Landscape, or any of the slow fetches would all have been very useful inclusions here. The reason why you run so many basics in a multicolored mana base such as this is to fetch out the ones you need. But there's not even a Krosan Verge or Evolving Wilds here, which could have worked here, not to mention inclusions of something like a Chromatic Lantern, which was included previously in one of last year's Commander Precons. They don't even have an Ash Barrens for us in this mana base. So how bad is that mana base? Not very, but it is suboptimal, and it does run the risk of mana problems more so than any other Precon from this year or prior. Experienced players would do well to immediately begin upgrading the mana base before anything else. But a new player cracking this right out of the box and playing with it has a high chance of mana issues during that gameplay. And while not a guarantee, it is unfortunate that this exists at all, and it needed to be noted. When combined with the lower value of the Dragon deck in comparison to the other three, this means that when asked which Commander deck from 2017 is the best, I'm still going to answer the best one is the one you're interested in most, but whichever one does interest you most, you should note that Dragons is somewhat less good than the others, predominantly in terms of its mana base. But hey, if you want Dragons, go get Dragons, but start upgrading that mana base as soon as you get them. Final conclusion. Commander 2017 pre-constructed decks are the perfect way to begin playing Commander, or they can just be a great and affordable way for experienced players to pick up a second deck. Containing solid financial value and many cards that will always find a home in other Commander decks, the Precons are also a great way to get a handful of Commander pieces from which to build or upgrade. The only weak link here is the Dragon deck, which contains less value and a suboptimal mana base, but neither of these are critical problems. However, it does set this one deck on a somewhat lower level than the other three. Grade: solid A on all but Draconic Domination, which itself is a very good B. And remember, you don't need to put up with price gouging. These will come down in price after the initial frenzy for them wears off. Go with another year's Commander decks. They're all great. Here you can see that today, as of today, there are numerous ones in 1 color, 2 color, 3 color from previous years delivered to your door for $34.99 and a few deals to be had for even less. When these are released and there is an excess of them for sale at many locations that are required to sell them at MSRP, it is highly likely prices will drop, if not immediately, then eventually. You do not need to pay more than MSRP for these right now. Buy a previous year's for $34.99 instead, or wait until prices come down. And this program was made possible thanks to a sponsorship from Card Kingdom, as well as the Patreon support of viewers such as you. So thank you.